Hello, everyone. Welcome to Miss Rep's Book Club event hosted by the Representation Project. I'm Dr. Caroline Heldman, the Executive Director of the Rep Project, and we are a gender justice organization that is fighting harmful gender norms and stereotypes. We are joined today by Sky Reed, the social media manager of the Rep Project, and the person who makes all of this possible, as well as an incredible author. So Sky, take it away.
Thank you. As Caroline said, I'm Sky Reed. I have the honor of introducing our special guest for the day, Tracy Dawson. So first, let's get into her bio before we get a little bit more into the book. So actress and writer Tracy Dawson is the author of the hilarious new book, Let Me Be Frank, a book about women who dress like men to do shit they weren't supposed to do, published by HarperCollins. Tracy is no stranger to doing what she wants in a man's world, having been part of the entertainment and comedy scene for years. Tracy began on the main stage of the world-renowned Second City in Toronto. She wrote and acted on the Canadian television series Call Me Fitz. She won the Gemini Award and a Canadian Screen Award for Best Lead Comedic Actress for her work opposite Jason Priestley on Fitz. Tracy was born in Ottawa, Canada, and is currently based in Los Angeles. Let Me Be Frank is her first book. So now the synopsis for Let Me Be Frank. Let Me Be Frank illuminates with a wry warmth the incredible stories of a diverse group of women from different ethnicities and cultural backgrounds who defied the patriarchy, refusing to allow men or the status quo to define their lives or break their spirit. These women took matters into their own hands, dressing, sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively, as men to do what they wanted to do, whether it was publishing a novel or running a marathon or circumnavigating the globe. So Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today. And I will stop sharing my screen and we can dive right into this conversation.
It's so exciting to be here.
Yes. Okay. So to kick it off, Tracy, you've had a career working in entertainment and comedy, as we read in your bio. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to Let Me Be Frank?
Yes. Oh, I'm hearing some feedback. Is it me? Is that me?
I'm not hearing feedback on my end.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm hearing some. Okay. I think it's gone. Yes. Live. So I was started as a comedian and as an actor for many years in Canada, and then that transitioned into writing for television. And this originally was an idea that I had that for a TV idea. I thought maybe this could be really cool, like an anthology series. And really, when I first had the idea, I was like, there's probably not enough people in history that did this. So it's probably not a great idea, but let me do a little research. And then I did a little research for what would be the TV idea. And I was like, oh, there's a lot more people than I ever could have imagined, and spanning such a wide range of time, from 1400 BC up until today. And so I went, maybe this is an idea. So I kind of built this idea of a TV project, and then, a TV anthology series, very hard to sell. They're expensive, especially when you're dealing with every single chapter or episode would be a different time period, right? And so they're really hard to sell. And so we didn't set that project up. And I felt dejected, mainly because, as a writer, you're used, and as an actor, you're used to a lot of rejection, a lot. So it wasn't that I just didn't set the project up. It was more like I had learned so much about these women that I felt like I can't let this go. Like, I can't let this go. Like, I want to tell their stories. I want to yell from the rooftops. And I said, I wonder if this is a book. And I've never had that thought before. Even though I've been writing my whole career, I never thought, about writing a book. And so I just started writing it. I didn't really know, you know what I mean? Like that, it's that sort of beautiful thing where you're kind of ignorant. You're kind of like, I don't know, let's just try it. Just go with it. And I thought, I'll write some stuff and then I'll share it with people and they'll tell me, yeah, this is an idea. This is a book. And that's what I did. I reached out to some people, and I had a script in development at the time with a network. And so I wasn't like, this has to work because this, it was more like, I think this could be something, but I'm not sure. And I have this other script I'm working on. So let's just see. And then I sent it to some publishing people in New York and some book agents, and people were like, no, this is a book. Like, this is a book. And I was like, oh, okay, well then I guess like I should do this. It just sort of organically happened. There wasn't a lot of angst, and it really felt like it was meant to be what it is now. Do you know what I mean? And so that's how it came to be. I didn't talk about like one of the things that inspired the whole thing, which I talk about in the introduction, which I'll just briefly say is something that happened like almost a decade ago when I was starting out as a TV writer in LA. Was I went to meet, you go and you have all these meetings around town with the studios, and like they have all their new shows for the fall season, as I'm sure everybody knows if you watch television. And so you go around and you have all these meetings, and they're like, they want to see if you're funny, they want to see how you engage in a room. And so one of the things they say is like, did you read our shows? Like, what do you think? Do you think you could be a good fit for any of these projects? And I said to this one executive, yes, I think this show and this show and this show would be great. And I think I'd be a great fit for them. And this executive just said point blank, oh, well, there's no female needs on those shows. So just to be clear, what I said was no female needs. So without saying the words, this executive told me there are jobs available in these writing rooms. They are not available to you because we've filled our quota of women. And it was really, really demoralizing, and it kind of planted the seed of what would eventually be Let Me Be Frank. Because I thought, should I do a reverse Tootsie here? Should I do a reverse Dustin Hoffman? Because I just want to write television. You know what I mean? Like, I just was like, I thought of myself as a funny writer, I'm a woman writer, and I write women. Like, it was very upsetting, but it definitely planted the seed for what would eventually become this book.
Wow. Okay. So it was a moment of sexism that inspired this great gift to the world, this incredible book, Tracy. And Let Me Be Frank, you cover a wide range of women throughout history. Some of them have passed, some of them are still with us. How did you decide who to write about, and why was it important, or was it important to you to include both those who are living and those who are dead?
Yeah, I mean, when I started to do the research, I was kind of blown away at the more modern stories and women that I was discovering. And so I thought, this isn't just women's history of days of yore, right? And it was definitely important to show, unfortunately, like, of course we've come a long way, of course we have, but to show that there's still so much. I mean, the fact that that executive said that to me, to my face in 2013 is, I mean, I don't think that would be said now. I really don't. I really don't think that. I think they might still be doing it, but they might not say it to my face, right? But when I started to do the research, and I saw, that Maria Torpakai, who was born in 1990 in northern Pakistan, and she lived in a very conservative tribal area, and the Taliban was just rampant in the area at the time. And all she wanted to do was run and play, and then play sports, and then compete in sports. And her father said, for other girls of her generation, like they couldn't leave the house without a male companion. Like, you couldn't even go outside of your home. And her father saw that was killing her, that this little girl would be smushed and destroyed. And so she cut off her hair, and she started to live as a boy so she could run and play outside and play sports. And like, that wasn't that long ago. She ended up becoming, the #1 female squash champion in Pakistan. And that was one of the most incredible stories to discover. I read her book. I devoured her book, which is called A Different Kind of Daughter. I talk about it in my book. And I just thought, this is so inspiring. This isn't just people from long ago. This is still happening in many different ways. That's another thing the book covers, is like, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to disguise myself as a man. Like there's really a vast array of stories and ways that women sort of took matters into their own hands. It isn't just a disguise element. That's some of the stories.
Thank you so much for that answer. I was also really blown away by that story in the book as well. And then thinking about these more modern instances, also just the young girls who dressed up as men so that they could just watch soccer. Well, the young girls and the women so that they could just watch soccer, and how that really started a movement to where, I mean, it was just a small fraction of people that ended up watching the match, but it grew to the point where women were allowed in the stadium, allowed to watch, I think it was the World Cup match. And I was reading that and I was like, yes, like just, it was sad that it was so modern, but it was great that they were able to do that and that it did lead to something greater. So
I want to say I know you have a question, Sky. I'm going to totally just jump on what you said, because I love that chapter as well. The Iranian women who simply wanted to participate in fandom, who wanted to be able to watch the soccer in the stadium. And that literally is happening right now. The last part of that chapter, I've talked about something that happened in 2019. And then of course the pandemic happened. So like in terms of attending sporting events, nothing was really quite the same in 2020. So it was hard to follow up on research about what was happening like in the moment, but it's basically like up to the minute, these Iranian women who are disguising themselves as boys and men just to watch like a game. It's absolutely, it's so inspiring because it's so brave. The bravery just to like say like, I want to be a part of something and I want to scream too for my favorite team.
it is. It's like you said, it's inspiring. It's great. And now to shift gears just a little bit, but Let Me Be Frank features both heroes and some more complicated figures throughout history, such as Christian Cadell, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name correctly, the witch pricker, and pirates Anne Boney and Mary Read. Why was it important for you to include these historical figures as well?
Yes, I loved including, some sort of anti-heroines, let's just say, because my thing is, I don't feel like a book about women taking matters into their own hands has to be just like strong women and they're all amazing and we wrap it up in a little bow and it's all, women are great and men are bad. Like, no. It's almost like equal opportunity, right? Like equal opportunity for there to be villains, and we see that in Hollywood too, right? Like I come, obviously, as a TV writer, I have pitched some shows with some less likable female lead characters. And Hollywood likes to say that they love the idea of an anti-heroine. They see Walter White, they see Tony Soprano. They're like, yeah, let's do this let's have these female anti-heroes. But then you pitch them, and a lot of the times they go, whoa, that's really dark. Or, whoa, that's a bit too much. Or like, whoa, because I think women are held to a different standard, right? Like not allowed to be too mean, too villainous, too this, too that. It's ridiculous. So I was thrilled to discover some of the people in my research, like Christian Cadell, the witch pricker, who is a true, unsavory, unpleasant, villainous, maybe even evil character who disguised herself as a man. This was during the famous witch hunts. And one of the methods that they said that they were going to prove that someone was a witch was by sticking these long needles. Just thinking about it, even though I've spent so much time with this book, I'm still like, I can't believe this happened. To stick it into the body in different spots in the body. And if there was no blood or no pain, that was called the devil's spot. And that was a way that they proved that these people were witches. And so Christian Cadell said, seems like maybe I could do that. Maybe there was ambition involved. Maybe there was self-protection involved. Like if I'm a witch pricker, no one can accuse me. Like if I'm disguised as a man, no one can accuse me of a witch. Like I don't think we should discount that possibility in her story. But it certainly is gross. And something I say in the chapter is, witch prickers were paid extra for every witch they positively identified. It's a great system. That's going to work out well for people. And so it's kind of a horror show, right? But I wanted to say, like, that happened. And, she did that, whether she was trying to make money to survive or to protect herself from, being accused of witchcraft. We're not going to know the whole story, but I just was like, I can't just tell, like, stories where, females are just like the pretty picture wrapped up in a bow and everybody's great, rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, that's a great segue to the next question, which we have, Tracy. This idea of different stories and different histories and different types of women in different time periods. What surprised you the most? What were some of the histories or the stories that shocked you as you wrote this book?
So there are some people in the book who people will have heard of. And there are a lot of people, I'd probably say the majority, people will not have heard of. And then there's like almost a third category, which is, I can't believe I don't know this person. You know what I mean? And so someone like Ellen Craft. Ellen Craft was a light-skinned mixed-race woman in Georgia, and she escaped from enslavement with her husband. She was posing as a white male plantation owner, and her husband posed as her enslaved valet. And they traveled from Georgia to Philadelphia to freedom. Now, you want to know surprised isn't even the right word, right? Shocking, because I probably for a day, I was truly upset that I had never heard this story. I think this is a story that every single person in this country needs to know. It is a tale of unbelievable strength and bravery and cleverness. And it's sensational, but it's true. I don't know why we're all not taught about it. I don't know why there's not a biopic.
Are you writing a screenplay, Tracy?
I don't think that's my screenplay to write. I don't think that's my story to tell, in fact. And I think that I'm still speechless that, someone's going to make that film. Someone's going to make that film. Look how long it took for Hollywood to make Hidden Figures. That came way too late. That movie, when we think about the subjects and the people that get made into biopics in Hollywood, I take a lot of I just think that person, I don't care. I could say some things about a movie that's out right now. I'm like, there's a movie about Elvis out, but there's no movie that's been made about Ellen Craft. And not only that, hardly any people know of her and her story, her incredible story, because she had to not only portray a different race, a different gender, and a different class. She didn't know how to read and write, and she had to portray a wealthy white plantation owner to escape through multiple journeys on train and on ships. So to me, I'm just like, wow. And so I guess it's part of me is like, I would just love more and more to be out about her. I did my small part in this book. I think someone else should take the reins and do a lot more with that story. So that was a big surprise.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I was equally, I think, surprised reading her story, and honestly, reading the book in general. Every couple chapters, I would be introduced to someone or to a history that I just had no idea even existed. Like we were talking about Christian Cadell, and I didn't know that witch prickers were necessarily a thing. I was like, okay, they really were just walking around here sticking people with needles. It was a surprise, but it was great to learn about all these different women and to really just want more from it all. And you mentioned even earlier how this was first conceived as like an anthology, and I'm just thinking to myself, I do want to see this on screen. I would
Well,
love.
we'll see, right? We'll see. I mean, we're definitely talking to some producers and stuff like that. And I think it's going to be a long process because you want to find the right partnership. You want to find the right people who would honor the stories, who would honor the way that I want to tell the stories, which obviously something we haven't talked about is the fact that the book is written very much in a conversational, often funny, sometimes snarky tone, because that's me. That's sort of like, I wanted the book to be very accessible. You know, it's not an academic book. It's not a book that's like, I'm going to think about these things. Like, it's very much like I'm sitting across from you in a cafe and we're friends. And I'm saying, you have got to hear this story. And I grab your hands and I don't let them go. And because that's how I feel like as a person, as a writer, as a woman, when it's like, I didn't want to approach the people in my book like with an arm's length. I feel like they are my sisters. I feel like they are my, we're on a team together. And I felt like that just really encouraged me every single day to get up and sit at my desk and to tell these stories and to do it in my specific, tone and bring some lightness to it.
Well, Tracy, can I jump in here about the woman to woman? I mean, that's a great, so you talk about this in your book, right? How one woman inspires another, there are some connections. For example, the chapter about Margaret King, where you read about how Mary Wollstonecraft's impact on a young Margaret later impacted Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. It's a beautiful illustration, right, of an intergenerational kind of uplift and the power of women helping other women. Is that one of the themes, or can you speak more to that about what you hope women will take away from this book?
Well, that just reminds me of, I mean, first of all, I love that chapter. I love Margaret King. As I said to you right before we logged on, I'm going to be going to Germany next month because I'm going to visit with Tina Burning, who did all the incredible illustrations, and she designed this lettering. She did all the hand lettering. I'm going to, we've become dear friends, and I'm going to finally meet her in person. But one of the places that we're going to go, which is a couple hours south of Berlin, is we're going to go to Jena, Germany, or Jena. I don't know how to say it, which is where Margaret King disguised herself as a man to go to medical school. So we're going to try and track down where she went to school. But to go back to your question, it made me think of something Sky just said, which is, it made me want to know more. There's something about, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say, you've made me open Google a lot. And you've made me, want to go and find this book and that book and read more. And I'm just, it makes me feel so full and so warm and emotional, because that's of course what I want. Of course, I want you to go and just, because I can only do one chapter, right? It's like, and some chapters are longer than others because they warrant that. But of course, I want people to know more and to go after it, because there's something I say at the end of the introduction, which is, no matter what happens to women, we get knocked down. To all people who've been othered, we get knocked down, but we always get up. And right now we are in a moment where we are facing some big knockdowns. And it wasn't that long ago where I said, I don't really think I can feel much hope. I'm not feeling a lot of hope, right after the announcement came out about Roe. But I feel differently now because we're like these video game characters that go, "Rrr, rrr, rrr, rrr," and then, you get your life back. You go, "Rrr, rrr, 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 rrr," and like, and
Yes,
you
Tracy,
get, you know what I
yes.
mean? Like, you're just like, I'm not going to lay down. I'm going to get up. because, and this book is like literally, it's inspiring because women were like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you're not going to tell me what I can and cannot do with my body and my life. And there is a connection to what's happening right now. Unfortunately, it is timely. And that's what I hope people get. I hope they're inspired by the fieriness and the perseverance of the people in this book.
Amen.
Exactly. Amen. That was incredible. And that fully answered our final kind of set question. So I think that we'll transition now into our audience questions. We did ask a couple of our book club members, or not a couple, we asked all of our book club members ahead of what the questions are. And then I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, but if any of our audience has questions, feel free to drop it in the Q&A. I noticed one there that actually ties in with one of our pre-asked questions from our book club community. So I'll just kind of combine them into one, but the question is about your research process. Easy or hard was it to dig into the histories of these women? Were there many resources available or only a few? And this is, I think, more generally speaking, why is it that history we learn about is mainly about men? And I think that you talked a little bit about, you read the book about the #1 squash player in Pakistan, and just, so what were some other resources that you encountered in this process?
Well, when people get the book, or if you have the book and you turn to the back and you see the bibliography, it's ridiculously large. And when I was compiling the bibliography, I was like, is this embarrassing that it's so big? Now, of course it's not embarrassing, but this is my first book. So I just went, this is really big. And that's because I just did a lot of research, and it was books, it was New York Public Library archives, it was videos, it was podcasts, it was a lot. And I didn't want to take one source, right? Like, so I wanted to find everything I could. And doesn't mean I read every page of every book, obviously, because I wouldn't have been able to write the book if I was still reading all those books. But I just thought, one of the things I speak to it in the introduction, which is, who has traditionally written down history? Old white men, right? And so whether it's scholars or historians or academics, so a lot of people get left off the page, or a lot of people's stories get shrunken, or there's a lot of erasure, or maybe there's a throwaway. Maybe they mentioned something about some woman, and it's tossed off, as opposed to given the depth and the writing that it deserves, right? And so I said, well, I can't just read one book. And so I tried to come at it from all kinds of angles. And someone like Joan of Arc, we all know Joan of Arc, but as I was doing my research, I realized, you know what? There's a lot of stuff here I didn't know. So if I didn't know it, chances are readers aren't going to know this whole story. And I wanted to include her because I don't think a lot of people knew that one of the main charges brought against her was wearing men's clothing. And there's court documents, and I found transcripts, and I found translations, and it was so incredible to unearth this stuff, because you feel like you're a private detective, like like you're digging around, you're just trying to get like nuggets. And there's a lot of documentation that she was wearing the men's clothing to protect herself from sexual assault, and so she brought this to the court and said, I understand that you're saying that this is a crime, and this is an offense, but I think I did it for good reason, because I was trying to protect myself. And they were like, no. Of course I'm simplifying the whole thing, but I don't think a lot of that gets written into the story, because she wasn't originally sentenced to death. She was originally sentenced to life imprisonment. And she said, okay, I'll take off the men's clothing. I'll stop saying that I talked to God directly. And they're like, okay, great. Life sentence. but then she put the clothing back on, and many say it's to protect herself in prison, right? And so the whole thing is like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just more there than maybe we've been told. And I think I'm getting off topic. I'm just like kind of rambling a little bit, but for good reason, people. One of the main things that I discovered in this process is I actually love research. I really love it. And so when you love it, you kind of want to keep going, because you get this little hit when you uncover something, like something again that maybe some academic thought was like a throwaway, or like some mention of like Jean Barret. Her story Jean Barret was the first woman to circumnavigate the globe. She did so disguised as a man. And what I discovered was, a lot of her story might have been completely erased from history, except she got just mentioned in different great men's biographies and diaries and stuff. And so historians could sort of piece together her story, right? And then you go, like, she's a footnote. She helped discover, some of the plants that are now like living in the botany museum in Paris, and her name isn't attached to a single one. And so again, it's me going, she was a part of history. Like, she did something massive. And so we're going to tell her story. And so that was a very long-winded answer, but hopefully it made sense.
Oh, it's wonderful. Tracy, you're telling us about your writing process and research. There's another audience question about which woman's story you were most interested in uncovering. I can think of lots of different ways of asking this, right? Which brought you joy? We've talked about shock already, but like, who did you enjoy learning about the most? And maybe it's more than one person.
Well, obviously I mentioned Ellen Craft, which was obviously not, it was like a thrill and upsetting, as I mentioned. I really loved learning about Dr. Mary Edwards Walker. Dr. Mary Edwards Walker is the sole recipient of the Medal of Honor in the United States. Sorry, sole female recipient. Don't forget the female part. And she didn't disguise herself as a man, but she wore, for the majority of her life, what was deemed men's clothing, right? She dressed in a suit, she dressed in pants, she wore a top hat. And she famously said, "I don't wear men's clothing, I wear my clothing." And she was arrested innumerable times in her life. And she was a surgeon, in the Civil War. And she was taken as a prisoner of war, and she was dedicated to service. And when she got that position as a surgeon in the Civil War, she wrote in her book that she let her curls grow long. She wanted everybody to see that she was a woman. It wasn't about disguising herself. It wasn't about trying to fit in. She was like, I'm a woman, and I'm wearing the exact same outfit, and I'm serving here on the front lines. And because of her service, and because she was a prisoner of war, they gave her the Medal of Honor. They tried to take the Medal of Honor away years later, not because she was a woman, but because I think that the government realized that they had given out maybe too many of these, and that means they had to give pensions, and they were trying to limit the money going out to people. And so she said, "You think I'm giving this back?" Like, the reason I loved about her, reading about her and learning about her, was she was so fiery. She was a pain in the ass. She was like, no, like, she didn't take any shit. And I love that her parents raised her. They believed in educating the girls, the girl children, just as equally as the boy children in the family. She went to medical school. I think she was the second woman in America to graduate from medical school. And she was taunted, like, people made fun of her. They thought she was a freak because she wore bloomers, which was like the early form of women's pants. Anyway, I love her because when they asked for her to give the medal back, she said, no. And not only did she not give it back, but she wore it every single day on her lapel until she died. And even with all that history, all that stuff that she contributed, when she retired, her whole thing became about dress reform. She wrote a book about it. She says, she famously said that more important than women getting the vote is women being able to wear whatever the hell they want. And people, some of the early feminists were like, we would like to vote. But she really believed that what was on a woman's back and like the freedom to move, comfort, was a deeply feminist issue. And I just love reading about her because, I mean, I can be a pain in the ass. So I love reading about pain in the ass women of
Yes.
days gone by.
Yeah, it makes you feel like, okay, I'm not alone. Also, I'm fine. I mean, don't we just need a lot more women to be people, to be pains in the asses as our rights are being rolled back? And as you're talking about these inspiring women, Tracy, I mean, it really does speak to today's political moment.
Absolutely. And I've always been someone with a big mouth. And I think that that has helped me being a comedian and someone that wants to like insert my feminist agenda with humor everywhere I go. But also, you know, I have friends who come to me because you know, female friends who maybe are I don't know, they to be a friend like that of someone who can like encourage using your voice, asking. One of my mantras is always ask, meaning I wonder if so and so might be able to do this, or if I would be able to do that, or maybe I'm a good fit for this position. Always ask, because people can say no. And I'm a big always ask. So anybody that's out there listening, if you're thinking about asking for a raise or a favor that this person might be able to introduce you to that job, like always ask. You deserve it.
Thank you so much. I feel like we're a little bit beyond time. I think this was originally scheduled for a 30-minute conversation, but I just loved hearing you talk. I loved hearing everything that you were saying about these women and about their histories. And I also they're incredible. And like Caroline said, it really speaks to this current moment, just thinking about all of these women who were facing so many barriers, so many societal rules, and that just said no. Like you said, they were saying, no, I will be a woman and I will be a doctor and I will wear these clothes and I will do it just as well as anybody else. And in fact, get medals for it. I just think that it's wonderful all around. But I guess like the final question, not about the book, but about you in general, where can people keep up with you? Where can they follow your work? Are you working on anything new that people can be expecting? I know that Let Me Be Frank just released. I think just in May it came out, but we love it and we want more from you.
Well, I would love it. Thank you so much. I just want to say this has been a joy. And I'm on the Instagram and I'm on the Twitter, and both my handle for both of those is at Dawson Tracy, last name first name second. And I have a website, tracydawson.net. And yeah, I mean, I have a second book idea, and it's very exciting because it's a companion piece. It would be a sibling to Let Me Be Frank. And so I'm just starting to work on that. And it's also going to be a ton of research, which should come as no surprise given what I just said. But it's going to be a little mountain to climb. It's very early days. And, you know, I didn't realize like all the stuff that after a book comes out, it's like, there's a lot to do, and it's fun and it's wonderful, but it's like, it's you know, it's kind of like a part-time / full-time job. Right. But, that's where I'm at on the internet. And I hope, people will come and follow me.
I just followed you, Tracy. You have one new follower on the Twitter.
The Twitter. And you'll get to see pictures of my dog if you're on the Instagram. That's all I care about. He's right there. Oh, love of my life. But this is really a joy, and I'm really, really grateful for you having me on.
Thank you for joining us. This has been a great conversation. We love talking about Let Me Be Frank, and thank you for everybody for attending. You can find more information about the Rep Project and future events on our website. And if anybody is interested in joining our book club on book clubs, you can join the conversation scanning the QR code, and our September and October picks are coming soon in the next couple of weeks. So thank you, everybody. We really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Tracy. You're amazing.
Thank you. Bravo.